So I'm going to welcome them to join me here. I've got their bios here to share with you just a little bit. Would you help me welcome from the University of Michigan Credit Union, Candy Keene. She is the Vice President of Talent Development. From way up in the UP, we've got Dylan Blonyars. He is the $485 million in assets there. Dylan spearheads marketing there. A great story for what he's done in years past too. Chantel Farley, e-services solution specialist at Lake Trust Credit Union, is with us as well, about $2.5 billion in assets. Kyle Zanugas is with us from One Detroit Credit Union, $55 million in assets, and he oversees everything. He's the director of operations there. So how about a round of applause for Kyle? And lastly, Monique Day, loan officer at Forefront Credit Union in Traverse City. So once again, just give them a good welcome here as we walk in. All right. Well, I am just going to have a seat here and just have a good conversation with you. We've got some great generations that are represented up here on the lectern with me, or on the platform with me. Candy and I were joking a little bit earlier. So down the line here, we've got some real live, I'm not kidding you, real live Generation Z and millennials in the room. How about this? We're going to capture them. We're going to hold them captive here for about 40 minutes there and really study them and understand a bit about what they provide in terms of the great value to the credit union. Candy, we don't come from Generation Z or the millennial side, do we?
Nope.
No, we're wannabes there. So I'm just curious from your perspective on the HR side. Candy, HR leader there with the University of Michigan Credit Union. What have you noticed about Generation Z and millennials in terms of maybe what they expect in the workplace, or how you're changing that workplace culture for those generations?
Yes, Jeff, it's a great question. And I think that you hit on a lot of those points with that last slide. These people, young people, they want to feel like they belong. They want to feel like they're part of something larger than themselves. They want to trust. They want to be trusted. And it's up to us to figure out how to make that happen in the workplace. You can align your senior leadership, then you have to make sure your frontline managers are aligned and know how to deliver on that as well to build the relationships that they want and need.
So you shared something with me earlier in just some conversation. From day number one, you've got your new employees excited to work for the University of Michigan Credit Union. Anything you can share of how you build that excitement and send them out the door ready to go?
Yes, I think the CEO, Tiffany, she likes to make fun of me. I like to get excited about it, and that's exactly, I need my team to be excited about it. So we'll show videos of parties that we've had, of what we're doing in the community, how the team members can get involved. We have a give back day where they can take a day off and just go spend it helping somewhere in the community.
I love it. Before I move down the road, if any of you have some questions for the panel as I'm up here, there will be some instructions up on the screen of how you can post some questions that I'll keep an eye on here and ask to the panel. But I wanted to move down the generational line here, so we talk about how she develops excitement from the up and coming generations. Dylan, Generation Z, millennial. There's no gray in that beard quite yet, right? Okay, give him a couple more years in marketing there. The gray will come in there. So as a younger generation coming up, what do you value most, or what do you expect from a credit union as that up and coming generation?
Yeah, so I mean, when I'm looking for a job, room for growth is my biggest thing. If I can't grow within the company, then I'm gonna be looking elsewhere. So that's one of the main things. But I'm pretty needy. It's hard to pick just one. Ask Brenda and Dave in the audience. I'm pretty needy when it comes to things that I want to do at the credit union. But yeah, just room for growth and obviously money, right? I mean, all right. I have expensive taste sometimes, so I can't afford myself.
Shoes there, the lizard skin shoes there.
So yeah.
So it's an interesting dynamic of Dylan there. He was well suited for working in the world of credit unions by your previous training, working on the dairy farm, right? That prepared you well for working on the dairy farm.
Prepared me well.
In the UP there. Chantel, tell us a little bit about your generation and what you value, what we need to understand from what you get from the workplace.
Yeah, so I am actually on the cusp. I was born in '96. I identify with millennial, Gen Z. I love the emojis. Some I don't understand. You know, they're coming out with so many. Something I do value is the acceptance of new ideas. I think that's important. You talked about that, Jeff. You know, I would love to be able to go to my manager or even our executive team with maybe some ideas that I have for the credit union.
So I'm going to ask you right now, what's an idea that you have for the credit union we need to hear about?
Ooh, I would love a more like a leadership program. I know that our credit union is kind of like focused on that, but you know, I know I personally am not afraid to go up to our CEO, David Snodgrass, and kind of talk to him about what leadership, you know, looks to me and get his advice. But I think that some people need that avenue, you know, so.
That's a key point. I like that leadership aspect, and you're not afraid to go up to David and say, I need this, I want to grow, and I'm sure the investment returns there. Kyle, you were just out in San Diego at a conference there. I know that's a big part of your leadership development. Now, you boasted that you are not part of Generation Z. You are a millennial and proud of it, right? Yeah, and he loves the fact that there aren't any more studies about millennials going on because they're all going to Costco on Sunday afternoon to get a 5-gallon tub of peanut butter. You're really adulting now, right? What do we need to know, though, about your generation that really helps you grow in that capacity?
Yeah, I think you want to really be believing in the mission, you know, that your credit union has. Our mission is to impact and change lives, and to be able to do that in a city like Detroit, where they're very heavily underbanked, really meant a lot. And then to have leaders that you can trust, that you could talk to, and that can challenge you, I think was really important when I made my move. I really wanted to be involved in a CDFI that was working on the underbanked heavily.
Yeah, it's a good point. And you shared yesterday in just some earlier discussion that your CEO challenged you to accomplish some objectives there, and that really helped you as a professional just sort of take that opportunity and go with it.
Yeah, I was actually introduced to Fuel before I actually joined by our staff. I didn't join in that time, but with some persistence, I'm thankful that they're as engaged and active as they are, which helped me do the same.
Yeah, love it there. Monique, your thoughts on Generation Z, the millennials, what matters to you as a professional?
Yeah, so for me, I'm really passionate about just volunteering, giving back to my community. So that's something that I've always kind of been interested in and wanting to help people. So when I started at Forefront, I was really happy to see that, you know, there is a lot of give back to the community, a lot of sponsoring of events, and that's something that I truly like.
So train your thoughts here to the missions of your credit union. I know we've chatted a lot about pay and benefits and investment and all things sort of monetary. Let's go beyond that and what your credit union is looking to accomplish in the communities and with members. And I'll start with you, Candy. I don't expect you to have memorized the mission statement of your credit union, but how do you explain the mission of your credit union to new employees and how they'll be able to really execute and deliver on this grand statement called mission, vision, and values?
Sure. We do talk about it on a regular basis, and it's the shared success, right? It's the success of our community members, our team members, and we all can work towards valuing each other and giving back and really encouraging each other to be successful in whatever that looks like.
How does the mission of Embers Credit Union in the UP really inspire you to just keep on delivering on the marketing side?
When I look at an organization's mission statement, I really kind of view that as a way of life and that I expect to live every single day I work there. So our mission statement, or our why, is spark opportunities, light up communities. We're sparking opportunities by financing someone's first car, their first home, and my personal favorite, their business. I love working with our commercial clients and light up communities. That's, you know, you can do that just by giving them a smile when they walk in or giving them a nice fat donation check when they're asking for it, right?
Yeah, Chantel, think about the mission there with Lake Trust there, how you value it and it really encourages you to keep growing professionally.
Yeah, great question, Jeff. I don't have the mission statement. Please do not tell my marketing team. I do have the vision statement memorized, and that's a world in which everyone thrives. Lake Trust does a really good job of going into the community and actually supporting the small businesses that have accounts with us, buying from their businesses, and I think that's a
Yeah, I don't ask anyone to quote from memory their mission statement. Years ago, I did that, and an audience in Fort Wayne, Indiana caught word of this ahead of time. I promised $20 to anyone who could quote from memory their credit union's mission statement, and 11 people raised their hands. So I was quickly off to the ATM. Kyle, think about the mission statement there in Detroit. How does that inspire you, and where do you see that delivered each day?
Yeah, that was one of the main reasons why I ended up at One Detroit. I really believed in that mission to impact and change lives. A very short first sentence, easy to memorize, and then we're trying to help the underbanked, and there's so much work to be done in Detroit specifically that I feel like the challenges are going to be non-ending for a long time, and hope to establish good relationships in those neighborhoods, that we can be a trusted financial institution, because the reality is a lot of our members have more access to a payday lender than a trusted financial institution. So that's really big, and to be able to work on that mission every day is very inspiring.
Yeah, sounds like loads of opportunity to keep executing there at your credit union. And Monique, your thoughts on the vision of Forefront and what you do, not just in Traverse, but other markets that you serve too?
Yeah, so the vision and mission is kind of helping our neighbors on their financial journey. I know that we have offered some free educational classes to the community, and that's been really great. I think that education and really informing our members is a really big thing, because I know before I worked at the credit union, I didn't know much about banking, getting a loan, buying a home, so that education piece is really important.
Yeah, so hold the thought down there on that, and Monique, because you'd shared earlier, you love the idea of advocating for credit unions as a young up-and-coming professional there. So what do you get out of advocating for credit unions? What are you telling the community? And I think even more importantly, what are you hearing from the community about your credit unions in general as a result of your advocacy? And I'll work down the panel as well, but wanted to start with your thoughts.
Yeah, so I think a lot of the community just doesn't know the difference between a credit union and a bank. So just kind of explaining that, explaining the nonprofit that, credit unions are really there to help people and less on the money side. So I think just kind of explaining that and getting them to truly understand, and just being out in the community is a big help there.
Now, are you taking that message and advocacy to Lansing or Washington, D.C. yet through some of the league advocacy efforts, or keeping it close to home?
Yeah, I did go to the GAC and hike the hill last year, so that was really great, just to be able to see, that the people helping people really is a state and national, level as well.
Yeah, Kyle, your thoughts on advocacy. One, how do you enjoy it, or do you enjoy it, and what are you learning from members that you chat with?
Yeah, I think I learn a lot, and especially through the payday scale, there's a lot of bills and activity where we want to be able to take that away, the predatory lending. So I think that's the one that hits closest for me, because it's probably the most impactful in our communities.
It's a good secret that we have there. Chantel, your thoughts on advocacy and your value?
Yeah, so advocacy, I learned actually a lot about it through Fuel MI and Patty Campbell, and actually my fellow cohorts up here have explained to me more about the advocacy piece. Payday lending is something also that Lake Trust is very concerned with, and we are actually offering small cash loans in order to combat that, where members don't even have to speak with the loan originator to get one. They can apply online, and if they're pre-approved, then they just get it immediately.
All delivered digitally, correct?
Yep.
Yep, love it. That's not just the younger generation, but all generations are enjoying that aspect there. Dylan, advocacy, your shout out for credit unions, what the members are sharing with you, what you're learning.
Yeah, it's crazy when you start looking at all the advocacy things and attending the state GAC and stuff like that, and hanging out with Bridget up in the front row. She's really great at advocacy. But it's so crazy how many issues that are slipped into these bills that no one would know about if we didn't talk about it to them. So just educating them on how to be in a better financial position and not take these payday lending loans, and just getting their finances straight away is really important.
Local financial coach there. I mean, Candy, do you take the time to explain sort of the reason that credit unions exist, how we advocate for the model itself, for all employees, but mainly for the new folks that join the credit union too?
Sure, Jeff. It's interesting listening to all of them, right? Because I think, and you can tell that by the large number of Fuel and Young professionals that we have here this year. But we're doing a good job of appealing to that and getting them day one. The question now is, are we attracting enough? Does people outside of our sphere? Because it sounds like we're delivering internally with our credit unions.
So we've got a great question that came from the panel there. Candy, I'm going to start with you there. The advice you have for other young professionals who want to have a voice in their credit union, but just don't feel that they're in that high enough position to share that insight there. What's the advice that you've learned or that you would give to that young professional?
Speak up. Yeah, it's so important for us to ensure that everybody has a voice and that we're hearing them whenever somebody comes forward with an idea, and we have to take care to make sure we're getting back to them. If something can't work, why? Maybe it's timing. Maybe it's there's 2 other big projects ahead of it. Whatever that is, but just speak up and ask the question. We want to answer you.
Dylan, I think you shared with me a story about you went up to Tom, right, and said, I want to do this.
So it's actually
tell us a bit.
Brenda.
Oh, it was Brenda, okay, thank you.
Yep, so she's been dealing with me for a long time now. But no, we had a situation where a marketing manager left abruptly, and I had just been given a marketing internship, and I was only 19 at the time. And I was like, hey, I can do this. Like, just take a chance on me, and here I am today, so.
You didn't play any of that ABBA music in the background to take a chance on me to sort
I didn't. I should have.
butter her up. Yep, just
maybe, yeah. Maybe
okay,
should have said yes quicker, but
here
yeah.
to help there.
The worst
so
they can say is
just
no.
ask. Yep,
The
good
worst they
point.
can say
Good
is
point.
no.
How did it turn out, by the way, the campaign?
I'm here today, so.
He's here today. And he's not on Indeed.com, so don't look for him there. Chantel, look at this question here. What advice do you have for someone who has a great idea but just doesn't know if I'm high enough to bring it up?
Yeah, so obviously, a lot of you know I'm not afraid to make that introduction myself, but for those that are more on the quiet side, I would urge you to find a mentor. Maybe you can, Candy's been an awesome resource throughout this AC&E, but just being able to ask like, hey, if I have this question, how should I phrase it to our executive team? Or hey, can you make that connection for me? So that's the advice I would give for those that might be kind of nervous to go up to their CEO or executive team directly.
Yeah, and Kyle, your thoughts? You've got a lot of young professionals in the room here wanting to know, how do we take this great idea to the next level of management?
Yeah, I think it starts, you have to be able to write a proposal. It's more than sometimes just a good idea. You need to be able to take that next step, put it on the paper, and be able to show the value that way. And I think it's really important to get mentors, to get advocates. Your advocate can come from a lot of different places. I've had advocates for me who were never my boss, but I know that they were saying really good things because you work with them on different projects, and they recognize and want to help you out. So grab your mentors, get your advocates. You're going to really latch on, and you have to make that first step really to make that relationship successful.
Yeah, and I kind of hear from you is every great idea that you want to take to the next level, tease out the business details there. Have a good case that you could submit to, I believe this will work and here's why. You might also learn it won't work, and it's good that you did the due diligence ahead of time before taking that idea.
Yeah, our field leaders were actually just talking about trying to get a session for either the end of the year, this year, or next year to do proposal writings, because we hear so many great ideas, and we want to make them be able to get to that next step by making it presentable to their boss or an executive team or a management team, and be able to get feedback, because it's not always going to come with a yes, but a no with an explanation is a good answer too.
Yeah, that's good. Monique, your thoughts. What's the advice you give to young professionals with new ideas?
Yeah, I would have to agree with what everybody else said. Just use your voice. I know that it can be really nerve-wracking sometimes, but you have to let them know that you are interested, and just, telling them and working with your supervisor, just kind of let them know, where you want to be, if there's anything more that you can do. It's really just letting them know, and they'll, help you with that.
Yeah, I like that. Chantel, we were playing around a little bit on Zoom a couple of weeks ago with that fact or fiction exercise. Remember that? Just bouncing back around. And one of the key points was fact or fiction, Generation Z, maybe millennials too, they're just job hopping. They're just going to go from one place to another, and they're never going to stay put and grow some roots. Is that true? Are we missing what we really need to understand from that fact or piece of fiction? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I love that. I think sometimes job hopping gets a negative connotation. However, I've noticed a lot with my generations that we are learning things quickly. We are, seeking out that leadership to help us advance, and we want that promotion quickly. And so, we're going to do what we can to get there. And if that company's not meeting our goals and our needs, then we're going to, find another credit union or place that will.
Candy, I'm curious your perspective. You probably see job hopping and the variety of pieces you tackle there with HR. What have you seen? How do you stop that from occurring, or how do you make some room for that element?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question, and one of the things we have to look at is we've been in unprecedented history here of low unemployment, right? So they have opportunities that sometimes you and I may not have had when there was higher unemployment, right? We got our jobs and we stayed there. It's a little different for them. They have opportunities. So it's just incumbent upon us to make sure that we're engaging them from their application, from when they walk in the door.
Dylan, fact or fiction, job hopping, or is it just something that us old timers are just kind of shouting and kicking those kids off the grass because they're not doing it like we did it?
Yeah, I mean, I've been with the credit union for 8 years now, so I'm kind of, I don't know, I guess not a good one to answer this question because I've been there forever, but I guess just don't give them a reason to leave. If they just don't give them a reason to leave and you'll be fine.
I love it. Kyle, your thoughts on that. Is it fact, is it fiction?
Yeah, I've only been at 2 credit unions, so I may not apply, but I guess you could see it more with the younger, but I also think it's a little different. They are, I believe, even more driven. They want to see a path, a clear path, and to help have that mapped out for them as well and worked on together.
Yeah, Monique, your thoughts on the same idea?
Yeah, I mean, I've been at the same credit union for 5 years, so not really a whole lot of job hopping there. But I mean, if somebody, doesn't feel like their, values or they're not moving up fast enough or kind of where they want to be, then they should definitely, go look at a different credit union is what I think.
Yeah, nice. We've got another great question from the audience. Thanks for submitting those too. Keep putting them through there. How can we best recruit young talent to the industry? Dylan, I'm going to start with you on this here. When you think about younger talent to the industry there, what's that pitch? What's that desire?
You really have to focus on the purpose of the job rather than, this is what the salary is, this is what you're going to do every day. If you give them the encouragement of you're going to be doing this every single day and helping this person and this person and this person, if you're focusing on that rather than just the day-to-day activities, it's going to make them want to work there. And just talking about that mission statement, even including that in there too. But yeah, that's how I would go to it, Lord.
Yeah, Chantel, your thoughts. How do we best recruit young talent like yourself to the industry?
Something that Patty said yesterday, talking about Gen Z and what their wants are. I think something that I believe Vibe Credit Union, Chaz is in the audience somewhere. I talked to him about they have paid transparency on their job postings. I think a lot of young adults are also looking at hybrid or remote. And you have to kind of be competitive in this industry where there's so much available. So.
Yeah, and Candy, we discussed this idea just earlier this morning having coffee. What are you doing from the HR side to recruit young talent to University of Michigan Credit Union?
Yeah, I am. I get excited, and I'm really good about showing that the second people walk in the door. What I'm trying to figure out now, and with the help of our lovely new CMO, Donna Dickerson, is how do we make sure that that's on our website? How do we make people feel us when they're coming to look for a job? We're all very good at showing that once they're in, but what does our website say about us? How do we show who we are, what those values are, how we value our team? They need to be able to see all of that before they even put in their application.
So what are you making them feel? I mean, obviously you handily defeated the Ohio State University in football this year, right? I know that's important there, but how are you making them feel what you want from Credit Union?
One of the things we're starting to do more of is video. It's not just a snapshot in time necessarily, but really seeing more in a video of an event or a speech, or just so they really learn who we are. And one of our big factors is financial education. We have a big focus on financial education. It's the industry we're in. And they need to see how we're doing that. How are we delivering? Where are we delivering? And the more we can showcase that, I think, is what's going to help attract. Do I got it right, you guys?
Yeah. No. Kyle, is she spot on, or is she thinking like a boomer down here? That's not how we do it here. Yeah. Okay, boomer, here's how we really do it, right?
Yeah.
Is she spot on, or what do you recommend?
Yeah, I believe what Candy's saying is right. I mean, people are going to want to come in, and they're going to want to feel that passion. It's great that they have you day one feeling the excitement, because I think that speaks a lot, and you learn a lot from that first interaction, from the first application on the first call and the interview to the end. To be able to make that connection then I think is really important.
Yeah, and Monique, before I get to you, Candy, you mentioned something interesting. I'll pose to Monique. A good friend of ours in credit unions is Mark Arnold. I'm sure a lot of you have met Mark before, but he shared with me a couple of weeks ago, people don't read anymore. They watch, hinting to the point of video there. So when you think about recruiting young talent to the industry, does video come into that element that appeals to kind of the way you learn and see an organization and what it offers?
Yeah, that is what I was going to say. A lot of young people do TikTok, social media. So if there is a way that we can create videos, whether that's explaining the credit union movement or even just explaining, what the job is through a video, I think that would really attract a lot of young talent to the industry.
So, Patty was talking about her dancing earlier with her daughter there. Do we need to get a TikTok video of her dancing for recruiting young professionals soon? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so what do we have here? We got a good question here. For the young professionals, what advice do you have for leadership that struggles embracing millennials and Gen Z in their organization there? Monique, you just kind of ended with a bit of video there, but what's the advice that you have for leadership that's kind of struggling with this next generation of up-and-coming leaders?
Yeah, as far as that goes, some people may, have struggles embracing, but we are the next generation, so it's going to happen whether you're on the same page or not. So embracing it is going to help everybody, in the long run, and just kind of helping young professionals, know the way and explain, maybe how they've done things in the past, along with, our ideas. I think that could really, really help.
So, Candy, one of the conversation we shared earlier, you take ideas to your young generations there, and I think your final question is, do I have this right? Am I getting this right, especially with regard to technology? Have you had conversations from your leadership team come up and say, we just don't understand this next generation? How do we understand? How do we deal with the new crop of leaders?
Absolutely. And what we have to remember is that every single one of these young people are different. They're unique. And we just have to get to know who they are. And that's really no different than a lot of the other leadership things we're trying to do related to inclusivity, right? Get to know them, build the relationship. It's really just who are they as people? And try to forget that they're any generation, because it doesn't matter. We're all on the same team.
And my guess is 1 year, 30 years ago, we were that up-and-coming generation too. You've kind of been in that seat before. Dylan, your insights. What's the advice you give to someone like me who's trying to figure out what I need to know to help you succeed?
Well, if you just scroll TikTok for a few hours, I think you'll learn everything.
Okay.
But yeah, it's really, you kind of don't have an option, right? If you want your credit union to continue to grow and you've got to keep grooming those people so they can take the jobs when people retire. So
I love the direct response. You kind of don't have an option.
Yeah.
Is pretty much what it is. So deal with it is what I'm really hearing, right?
Yeah.
You might pepper it up with some other language too there, but I get your take there. Chantel, your advice.
Something that I'm learning a lot this year is speaking in their language. So it might be that, I know I have a lot of passion, and a lot of our open forums are questions that have been driven by emotion and not necessarily the data. So I think we need to speak maybe in hey, if you think we should be hybrid, where's the data to back that up? And I think that will help with just more of that embracing.
Are there certain elements of your language that we're not speaking that we need to stop doing altogether? Stop calling it the Facebook? Is that one piece that we could stop with there?
Yeah, I think we have to understand our audience, right, in general. And so sometimes I know finance, they're throwing out numbers and I'm like, what does that mean for me? So just understand that from a leadership perspective.
So you've got to be confident enough to say or ask, what does that number mean? We have to be comfortable enough to kind of sit down with a piece of paper or a spreadsheet and show exactly how it matriculates out there. Love it. Yeah, Kyle, your advice to young professionals, to leaders struggling with embracing millennials and Gen Z.
Yeah, I would advise to probably try different ways to connect. I can speak from experience in our Fuel group. Our young professionals are not afraid to share their opinion. They are on the opposite end where they love to throw all of their opinions in a very good way. So maybe just finding that maybe how you're trying to communicate with them isn't connecting. And if it's a survey, an anonymous survey or a one-on-one lunch, I would explore the other avenues maybe than just a team meeting where they might not feel as comfortable to put out their idea. But I think if you try the different ways to connect one-on-one, that you will learn a lot about what they're about and where they want to be.
And for goodness sakes, do not wear socks with those Crocs that are coming back into fashion again, right? Candy, I want to look at this question here. It's a lot about key metrics there. Basically, how can a credit union measure the success of its leadership development activities? And I'm curious from your perspective, Candy, what are the key measures, the indicators, some of those KPIs that I referenced as I wrapped up that you track the development of folks at your credit union?
Yes, I think there's a couple of things that are really important. And one of them, we all like to look at the turnover, but we have to look at our retention. You know, if we say, oh, we're turning over a lot of Gen Zs, that's not fair if that's who we're hiring, right? So we have to look at how are we retaining them, talk to them and ask them. You know, we're doing that today. They've all been staying in their industry and their credit unions. Why? And that's what we have to ask our own employees. If we want to stay relevant, we have to ask the questions.
So it's about turnover and retention, two key metrics that you could approve some success there. Dylan, your thoughts on metrics that showcase that we're certainly empowering tomorrow's leaders?
Yeah, so I mean, at Embers we have Culture Amp, so it really helps us work with our Net Promoter Score and see how many people actually would talk greatly about Embers. Sure. So that's kind of the biggest one we look at. I'm not in HR, so I can't really dive into this much deeper, but yeah, that's your Net Promoter Score, which is also a good one to have for marketing reasons as well. So
yeah, and that's interesting. So the Net Promoter Score, many of you probably measure it as, you know, would you as a member recommend this credit union to someone else? The origin of the Net Promoter Score actually started on the HR side, is would you recommend this credit union to someone you know as a great place to work? And so you can ask that question internally too, can't you?
Yep. Yeah. So that's what Culture Amp does. It does the Net Promoter Score internally.
We need to do that in the exit interviews, right? If we're not doing exit interviews, we don't know why they're leaving, right? So it's the same. You can ask that question and find out, why did you leave?
Interesting. Chantel, what's the metric you would propose or suggest?
This is a really good question. So we do a Q12 survey. So it is about the engagement within Lake Trust. Something that I really enjoy that they do ask is your relationship with your manager, right? I know a lot of speakers talk about how a relationship with the manager can impact whether you stay or whether you go. So I think that's also something to be looked at, so then we can build the current leaders to maybe foster those future leaders more.
Nice. And Kyle, your thoughts on that, the measures?
Some sort of internal retention and growth would go hand in hand. People being able to see that no matter what position, they may be able to jump and gain experiences elsewhere.
Okay.
I think would
be internal promotions and moving throughout the organization?
Yep.
Yeah, I love it. Monique?
Yeah, so I think just having anonymous surveys, a few times a year, just kind of asking, if you could see, something differently, what would you change? Just really getting that feedback before they leave, so we can, maybe make some changes to help keep people, but also, the exit survey, is a good idea as well.
So I'm getting the sense from this next question you see on the top there is that there are some folks in the room who really like you. They probably like you to work their credit union is what I'm catching from this question there. So to everyone, Candy, I'll wrap up with you on this question here, but what's going to keep you in the credit union industry career-wise? Monique, maybe we'll start on your side there. What's that element that keeps you tied to the industry?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's definitely giving back to the community, helping out, and then career pathing. So, just sitting down with somebody, having them ask me, where do you want to be? Maybe what ideas do you have? Just kind of given the opportunity, I think, is important, because not everybody will speak up initially, if they feel like they're not in a high enough role or position. Using your voice is definitely important, but we feel like we don't want to overstep sometimes. So being asked or, given that opportunity, I think would help, some people speak up.
Kyle, what keeps you here? What's that sticking point?
A combination of the mission and then the people, the networking, being in an industry where we're able to bounce ideas off each other, hear what our neighbors are doing and how successful they are. That to me is a huge draw, knowing that we get, like Patty said, hopefully 20 of these AC&Es one day and be able to learn a lot from not only our credit unions, but our peers.
Yeah, love it. Chantel, what keeps you?
Things like this. So just seeing that my credit union Lake Trust sees me enough to pour into me and, nominate me for Fuel MI. And because of that, I've grown confidence in being able to talk with fellow CEOs. And I think that it should be more marketed, that Fuel MI. So I think that would be just great. I mean, within credit unions, to get more people feeling confident within their roles.
Yeah, good. Dylan?
Yeah, I personally would not want to be a young professional in any other industry because there's so much room for growth in this industry, and the commitment that all of you guys have to the young professionals is just kind of unparalleled to anyone else. So that's what would keep me here.
Candy from the HR office, what are you learning from your team when they share with you, this is why we stay and grow in the credit union industry?
It is. We have to give opportunities. And we look for us to stay relevant. We have to give the opportunities. And look how they're embracing it. It's just fantastic listening to them. And we just have to recognize that they are our future. And if we're going to be relevant down the road, let's hear their voice.
So I'm going to give you one more question, 30 seconds to answer. It is the question right in the middle. There are a lot in the room that are asking this same one. What are your thoughts on the lack of young professionals on credit union boards of directors there? So you got 30 seconds there. Candy, quick thoughts on the lack of young professionals? What's that suggestion?
It's something we have to continue to work at. Age is one of the diversity factors we should be considering as we're recruiting for our boards as well. And that's going to help drive us into the future.
Dylan, what's going to impress you enough to join a credit union's board if you were in that kind of marketplace there?
That's a tough one. I don't know how to best answer this one, but I mean, if you want to continue moving forward, you're going to need that younger voice. It's kind of having like a younger person on your executive team. You need that younger voice to get in that next generation to your credit union. So I think if you want to continue to grow, that would be the way to do it.
Yeah, Chantel, what are your thoughts? What encourages a young person like yourself to join a board?
I don't know all that the board does, so I would urge credit union CEOs and the executive team, when you're having those board meetings, if you have young professional leaders in your credit union, maybe invite them to just sit in and listen to what those meetings look like, so then we want to, be part of that.
I'm just glad this isn't a board panel where you stated, I don't know all that the board of directors does there. That would be a whole different session there. Kyle, what's your recommendation, young professionals on credit union boards?
Yeah, I think it would be important to get more young professionals, especially with how tech-heavy credit unions are moving with our partners, to have that vision on the board. I know that we're lucky to have a few younger members on our board, and I think that helps keep us sharp in those ways.
Nice. Monique?
Yeah, I think the education piece, just, putting it out there, what all is entailed with being on a credit union board, and then I just think that would help.
So we've got a couple of minutes left here. I want to make sure we give some time for our next panel coming up there. Those of you who have been in my meetings, I start meetings on time and end them a couple of minutes early. That's the definition of a successful business meeting, right? Folks, would you help me in just thanking and giving a great round of applause to Candy, Dylan, Chantel, Kyle, and Monique. Well done, right? Yeah, nice.